Alright guys, Papa Pepper here at the Abundant Harvest Homestead. Welcome back once again. Today I'm working on building up my raised beds. Planning for spring. We're going to be growing stuff through the winter. I'm still harvesting and cleaning up stuff from right now, the 2019 kind of spring, summer, fall growing season. But, you know, I've got tons of rocks here. You can see them behind me. I'm going to continue to try to suppress stuff like this and build up little raised beds as I'm able to. Everything's definitely a mess. I'm working on it. I'm going to get into, in the near future, a little more of why I garden the way I do. But that's a separate video. Right now, I just want to kind of show you some stuff with this bed here. So this is one of my raised beds. It's one of the more perennial beds. This year I did grow some tomatoes in it and some peppers. But there's some walking onions coming in back here. 2 trifoliate citrus plants, which are going to be trees that make a nice citrus fruit that we can enjoy in this area. And then there was originally 5 rhubarb plants. Right now I'm down to 3 main sections, although some of these I can split. So sometime in the winter I may fill in the blanks of where the other ones were that didn't make it. I've had some people tell me that rhubarb really doesn't do well in this area, but I'm willing to give it a go. This is its 2nd year on these 3 anyway. This one here already went to seed, so I'll also be spreading some seed. Not the best way to kind of propagate rhubarb, but I'm going to give it a try. But while we wait for spring, I want to be adding to these beds. From where my hand is on this bed to the actual ground level is probably about 8 inches. Because I mulch my paths with wood chips, it doesn't look like much of a raised bed, but over time the paths are going to stay rather compacted as we continue to add wood chips to them and walk on them, and these are going to continue to get built up. So I may be adding extra layers of rocks and having these get bigger as time goes on. But right now, if I just reach down in there, oh yeah, I'm down about 7 inches there, and here's an idea of what that looks like. I'll show you a little closer. This is the growing medium we're dealing with. So at the moment it's very rich, a lot of nutrients, a lot of good stuff going on in it, but we want to continue to do that. And for the plants that are here, I want to make sure to continually be feeding them. For my for my annual beds, I want to make sure to be continuing to replenish whatever may have been taken out by the previous year's crop as well. So a couple things we deal with here on our homestead. One is that we try to view everything as a resource and find a use for it. A lot of things that we have get composted. This is actually majority leaf litter from the forest floor mixed in with some other stuff. We actually use this as an incubating medium for our snakes that we hatched. We had a couple clutches of wild snake eggs. One was laid in a 5-gallon bucket. The other was in an irrigation thing I was dealing with. So we had to move them anyway. We figured we'd create a nice natural-ish growing or incubating medium for them. And then over time, it just turned into some really rich soil. There's still some sticks in here and stuff, which is fine. They will require some nitrogen as they break down, but eventually they'll be adding stuff back to the soil as well. So between stuff like that and our actual compost, where we take everything that the animals don't eat and that we don't eat, and we try to compost it, we're going to be able to continue to add compost and different organic material like that to the top of these beds, making them deeper over time. Another thing that we have is wood ash. For a number of reasons, we get a lot of ashes. We do a lot of things with burning wood. Eventually we'll be heating our house with wood. So over time, we get a lot of ash. There's a lot of good things that can come from adding ash to your garden. This stuff is actually pretty dense. And besides just ashes, because we periodically have Viking funerals here, there is a number of bones in it that have been burnt. Pretty much if an animal dies of a sickness or an illness, what we do is we burn the carcass. That eliminates scavengers like vultures, raccoons, possums, other things that may come in. And it also just allows us to, without having to dig a hole in the hard Arkansas Ozarks soil, which is rock and clay, it allows us to dispose of the body in a rather sanitary way. And then these bones are about all that's left, but if you grab them, you can pretty much crush them up which is rather interesting. So honestly, my hands aren't that tough to be able to break up that bone like that, and some of it almost turns into powder, which is good because any good nutrients that are still in these bones are going to need to be water soluble to have the plants be able to wick them up. So ashes is another thing that we will be adding to our raised beds as we continue to build them up. And then one of the other things that we generate on our homestead is rabbit manure. Besides having rabbits as a potential thing to sell or barter, the main reason that we have them is for the manure. Because rabbit manure is a cold manure, you can add it directly to beds and don't have to worry about it burning the plants as much. There is a potential, and people have done it before, but what I like to do is, especially as we prepare for spring planting in the fall, add the manure to the top of it and just kind of let it get beat down by the rain, slowly absorb into the soil, and be there for the plants to take the nutrients and minerals and whatever else is in here to feed them when it's their turn to grow in the spring. Another thing is if you're growing a root vegetable, so your carrots, your potatoes, other things that are going to be planted under the ground, it's best to make sure that any raw manure you're adding has been there for about 6 months first. So if I take it now, in the end of October, then I've got November, December, and at the end of April, I should be able to be harvesting things out of a bed that I covered in rabbit manure. So throughout the year, we do like to use fish emulsion that we make here ourselves. We do like to use a stinging nettle liquid fertilizer. We like to use comfree as a liquid fertilizer. And then also, what was the other one we really like using? There's another one we like to make here too. It escapes me at the moment, but whatever we can be doing here on our own homestead to enrich the quality of the soil, the growing medium in which we're growing our food, then hopefully the higher quality the actual food we're eating is. This is just one way that in the fall I like to especially prepare these beds for the spring. And even behind me here, what you have here is a perennial garden. There's some walking onions thick on the side. There is a layer of strawberries here, and then I'm going to be working on getting some grapes established at an upper level. But if you notice, that's kind of a hole down in there. So if I slowly add to that over time, it should build it up to a nice flush, even level, and be a much more, presentable one and a better bed to be growing in. And if you notice too, a lot of the strawberries have escaped, so we will be moving them to a new area or filling in the blanks in pre-existing raised beds. So anyway, hopefully that's some good stuff for you guys to think about. I'm going to find a shovel. I don't want to use my hands right now to spread this manure. But one thing too with fertilizing rhubarb, I've heard people talk about before, you pretty much add so much stuff that you think you're going to kill it and then add a little bit more. Like, they really can be a heavy feeder and they really enjoy stuff like that. So I'll be adding a good layer of manure here too. But if you notice already, just with that 5-gallon bucket of ash and that 5-gallon bucket of pretty much compost, it's like the natural compost from the forest floor, we're already a little deeper than we were before, and then this can soak in all winter too and be there to feed these plants when they want to come back hard and heavy in the spring. Alright guys, we will talk to you soon enough. Thanks for joining us. Papa out.